Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday evening. Got to get my other camera up and running here just a second, or on my other computer. I'm still not used to using the live producer on Facebook. It's a little different. So just a second here. All right. Oh, looks like I found myself. That's good. All right. Oh, got a few people coming in. People finding me. Hi, everybody. Is everybody ready for a little bit of spring tonight? We all need a little spring, don't we? It's actually not been too bad of a day. It's gotten kind of windy tonight, though. I can hear the wind blowing. So, hello. Hi, Colleen. Hi, Denise. I kind of like it that the one thing about using the producer in Facebook is I can see your comments a little easier. I like that because then I can see who it is that's commenting instead of having, I still can have two computers open, but it is kind of nice. Hi, everybody. So we're going to do a little spring pillow. I just thought these were adorable. I like spring. And so this is what we're going to work on tonight. This is Lucky Us, We Have Each Other. And there's two pieces to this. So you do this is this end, and then there's this part. So we'll talk a little bit about the fabrics and everything, and then we will talk about, hi everybody. Boy, there are all kinds of folks coming in. Hello. So we'll talk a little bit about the fabrics and, what you need and everything. And then I did a little pre-sewing so you wouldn't have to sit through all of this embroidery. A lot of it's just letters. So, that I think it's cute too. I thought it was really fun. This was really fun to do. And I love these. I love the paper piecing. So they do quite a few little this is like paper piecing in the hoop. So I did do a little bit of it, so you didn't have to see me do all of these geese because it has like 36 steps, but it goes really fast. So we'll just do the last ones because it's exactly the same over and over again. So once you see me do it, you'll understand how it works. It's very simple. So okay, so I'm going to turn the camera around. And then we'll talk about the fabrics a little bit, okay? So we get the camera turned around here, hopefully. I got a new camera arm, and it doesn't move very well. There we go. All right, so let's look at the book here. So this one I used just a few colors. I had black and white that I used in it. Then I used a lime green, it's 1072 in Brother, an emerald green, which is 507, the oceanic green, which is 1182, and a Kelly green, which is 77. Okay, so that's some of the color, that's the few colors. I used like 6 colors in this one. And then I wanted to show you on here, there was a couple of changes, and I tried to make sure that I was cutting like the backs of all these little pillows the same size all the time. And I noticed that this one had, it said that the back pieces. So let's talk about the front pieces first. Well, the backs were fabric 2. So fabric 1 is, second here, you get these flipped over here. Fabric 1 is going to be the main back part of Lucky Us, We Have Each Other. Now you can see I've done a little pre-sewing tonight so that you wouldn't have to sit through all those letters. And that piece was 8 by 10. And I also cut, and you notice here I put here plus shape flex. So you want to put a piece of shape flex on the back of that fabric, okay? That main fabric. And then the other main fabric is going to be the background of the little flying geese here. So here's the start of my flying goose block, and these little pieces here are cut out of that main fabric so that they match the other piece. Okay, so that's what these pieces are. And then the back pieces is where there was something different. They made this one back piece. They said 8 by 6, and it's too short. It needs to be, all the rest of them I'm talking about this piece right here. This piece here. It was 9.5 by 6 for all the other pillows, so I changed that. It was just too short. And then the other piece is 3.5 by 6. So they were a little inconsistent with the back piece measurements. So I cut it 9.5 by 6 instead of 8 by 6. And then this one was 3.5 by 6. So there's the backs. Okay. So we got the back pieces. Got some binding. So here's my binding with the little swirls on it. Oh, hi, Jan. Hi, Clara. All right. And then we got, then we had some little applique pieces. So there was a clover piece. That's this little kind of green piece. I already put mine on my machine, or on my pre-sew. So it's this little piece here. And then there was a piece for the flying geese. There was all these different little colors, and I just chose 6 colors. There was a navy blue and a pink. I just chose variety colors, and that's what these pieces are here. Okay, so I've already put some of them on the block. And then some green applique glitter that has the holes in it. So this is the polka dot applique glitter. Okay, so you need some of that too. Now they did make the piece quite large. They said 4 by 4, and you can get by with 3.5 by 3.5, so you can conserve that expensive glitter vinyl. Okay, so I did cut mine 3.5 by 3.5 for that. All right, and then I think that is it for the cutting. So that's for the cutting for this one. Okay, so like I said, I did a little pre-sewing here so that you wouldn't have to sit through all these letters. But I'm going to walk you through how I did my hooping. Again, they always tell you to use a cutaway, and I use tearaway for these, okay? So this is a tearaway stabilizer. I have my main back fabric backed with Shapeflex, Pellon SF101. Then I take, what I do is I take my fabric glue stick, and you've seen me do this many times. I take my fabric glue stick, I put it on the back of my fabric piece with my Shapeflex on it. I kind of glue it down to the middle of my tearaway, and then I hoop it as close to the middle as I can. Okay, so I don't do all the measuring and everything that they do in the first part of the instructions. But I use this, I use this to glue it to the tearaway, so that it seems like it gives me a better, it keeps me from getting things puckery. Okay, so that's what how I did that, and you've seen me do that many times. So I figured if I just talked you through it, you would remember how I've done that. Okay, so this is a 5 by 7 hoop, just so you know. I'm going to go ahead and put this in now, and let's see. I think what I have done here so far, we'll just talk through it. Let me get a little closer here. Okay, so what I have done here so far was step number 1 is the 2 little stems here for the shamrocks. Okay, step number 2, which I am going to sew out right now, is going to be, I wanted to do the applique with the glitter vinyl so that we can review doing that, because you haven't done that. We haven't done that for a while. So I've got my little ironing mat over next to me over here, and my little iron ready, because I need to iron down this glitter vinyl. Okay, so step number 1 was these little stems. Step number 2 is going to be my placement line for my large, get this out of the way here, for my large glitter vinyl shamrock. Okay, so I'm going to put in my emerald green, I think is what the color I used. Yep, my emerald greens. Let me get that in my machine here. Didn't have that threaded, so, and I have just regular bobbin thread in the bobbin. And I have a number 11 needle in the machine. Okay, so number 2. So I'm just going to go down to number 2. And of course, we all know how to do this, but I'll show you. So if you haven't done this before on your machine, I can change, like right now I'm on step number 1. I want to do step number 2 because I've already sewn step number 1. So I can hit the plus minus needle down here. And then on my machine, I have the arrows. Some of the other machines have like a spool with a plus sign and a spool with a minus sign. plus sign means I had a whole color. Spool with a plus sign. Mine has an arrow. So I'm just going to touch my arrow, and it now says that I'm on number 2. And that's the placement line for my shamrock. Okay? I would recommend with these, it's going to be a motif stitch around here, so I would recommend using a matching thread for your tack down and your placement line and your tack down, because it might show through. I mean, the placement line won't, but I always just use the same color for all of them. Okay? All right, so we're going to do step number 2, because step number 1 was these little stems. Got my emerald green thread in there. Just a second, let me get this out of my way. Okay, and step number 2 for this first block is going to be my placement line for my glitter vinyl. Get a pretty good sized shamrock on this one. Hi Cindy. Hi Terry. Hi Pat. All kinds of folks coming in. How's everybody today? I've been doing a lot of sewing today. Been working on some classes and stuff. Okay, so here's my placement line for the shamrock. Now when we use this glitter vinyl, of course, we need to take the clear plastic off. Be a little careful when you do that with this polka dot stuff, because it's actually got holes in it. It's actually, what the polka dots are, it's got holes in it. Just be careful, because this rips a little easier with the holes in it. So I have to be kind of careful when I take it off. So make sure you take the carrier sheet off. We don't need that. Okay. Hi, Marcia. All right. So now I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to put it over my placement line. And you can conserve your glitter vinyl pretty well there. And I did cut mine a little smaller, so. All right, so I'm just going to kind of hold it. It says to tape it, probably. Probably says to tape it. I just hold it. Whoops, except that I didn't get my flipper shut. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew the tack down here. I may have to go over and get my glasses, because this is pretty matchy. I forgot to grab my glasses out of my drawer here. And go grab these while this is still. This thread is pretty matchy. So it's hard for me to see it. Okay. So the next step is going to be number 5 on page 4 of the instructions, and it's going to trim the glitter close to the stitches. Okay, so we're going to trim. We've done some of these before, so I think you've seen these. So it is a little hard to see where you're trimming. Hopefully you can kind of see me here. You pull this up like that. Maybe you can see better. There we go. All right, so we're going to trim close to the stitches. I really had a matching thread, but if you don't use kind of matchy thread, when you go to do this, there is a motif stitch on these. Both of these shamrocks, and so you can kind of see the tack downs. Okay, this is a pretty good sized shamrock. This one's hard to see, just a second. This is the hardest part, is the trimming at night when it's incredibly matchy thread and fairly dark. It's pretty dark out here in the evening. It's very light out here during the day. I love stitching out here during the day. I've been sewing out here all afternoon. But it's kind of dark out here at night. All right. Alrighty. Everybody still hearing me okay? I can still see myself moving, so I must be okay. I'm watching myself. They are going to come and work on my internet this week. They were supposed to come last week and they didn't show up, so now we're hoping for Wednesday. Because I think they said there's an internet problem outside. So hopefully we can limp along and get through this one, and then next week things will be back to okay. Alright, let's see. I'm getting through this as quick as I can. Sorry guys, it's really matchy, so it's hard for me to see. Alright, getting around. And you do want to trim this fairly close because the motif stitch, you want to make sure it covers well. Okay, there we go. There's our Alright, so here's our shamrock. Now the difference, the thing that we need to do here then is, of course, we need to go ahead and we need to press this down with an iron because this is like heat transfer vinyl. So I'm going to bring this over to my mat. I'll just move the camera up and tip it up so you can see. Carol says the video keeps pausing. Now see, I can't see it pausing on my end. I'm watching it on Facebook and I don't see it pausing at all. So it might be you, Carol. Signal drops out for a couple seconds every once in a while, but it's okay. Okay. So hopefully the video will be all right. I apologize. They, like I said, they were supposed to come last week and they didn't come. They didn't show up. It was Tuesday and they didn't show up. So I'm now, then of course you have to wait a week or two for another appointment. So hopefully we will get this fixed and be ready to go for next week. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lay this on my ironing mat. And I've got my pressing cloth. You want to put your pressing cloth over this. Okay. And then I'm going to take I've got my favorite little iron. I just love this little iron. These are up on the website. I just love this because they fit in the hoops. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press down on that glitter vinyl for about 15 seconds or so. I'm going to have to do 2 presses on this one because it's pretty big, so that it adheres to my fabric. And I love my little wool mat that lays next to my, this is a good size. It's 14 by 14 and it lays right next to my machine. So I love that. The cat also likes it. It's a nice pad to sit on, you know. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to put the iron over here so I won't burn myself. All right. So there's my shamrock, and it's all pressed down, and I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to let it cool off just a little bit. It's just a little bit, it's a little bit warm. I like to let it cool just a minute before. What temp do I have my iron on? I think I have turned it up to max. Let's see. I think it's pretty close to all the way up. Pretty close to all the way up. This little Nifty Notions iron, it's like, I don't know, it's not that expensive. Was it like $25 or less? And awesome, because it fits in the hoops. It'll even go in the little 4x4. So I use this all the time because I have finally found an iron that was small enough to fit in the hoops. So I don't have to try to use the big iron. Okay, so there we go. So it's cooled off now. Put this back in. So now we're going to do a little bit of jumping around again. So the next step in the instructions is actually the placement line. Let me go down here. Is the placement line for this shamrock, which of course I already have in here. Okay, so we don't need to do that one. So I'm going to do the down arrow again on my machine. Okay, that would have been the placement line. Then the tack down line is step number 5. So 4 was the placement line. You lay this piece of fabric down, and then step number 5 is the tack down line. Okay, and then step number 6 is actually going to be the cover stitch on that other shamrock. Okay. Oh, yeah, I have a sweater on. I'm actually cold. It gets cool out here in the I know I'm always hot. Actually, my dad gave me this sweater. This is an awesome sweater. It's very, very soft, and it's just a big cardigan sweater. Okay, so here is this is step number 6, is this decorative stitch around the smaller shamrock. Okay. And then I think step number 7. So I'm going to go down to step number 7. is the one I'm looking for. It's going to be the cover stitch for my big shamrock. So we're going to do that. So that one is also going to be a motif. So that's why I used matching threads so that everything matched, okay? So this is going to be the large shamrock cover stitch. Step number 7 in the machine, and it's going to be step number 12 in the instructions. So I left my emerald green thread in there, okay? Yeah, this room is cool. Denise, once the sun goes down, this room is always a little cooler than the rest of the house because it's like way as far away from the furnace as it can get, and I'm over the garage. The thing that really gets cold, the only thing I really get cold is my feet. So I have to wear slippers or shoes out here because this back corner is very cool where my sewing machine is. I love this room. It's just, this room is so nice. Alright, so we're getting around and it's doing kind of a decorative stitch. Let me see, where's my pillow? So you can see it a little bit better. It's kind of fuzzy almost. It's kind of cool. Put this up so you can see it. Can you see the little, it's like almost like it's fuzzy. Can you see the little hairs sticking out? So it's a really cool motif stitch that's going around here, making it look kind of dimensional. Okay, so that's what we're doing right now. I'm going to move my ironing mat out of the way so I can move my, well, this is sewing, so I can move my cutting stuff over here. We're going to have to do some trimming. Okay, so it's getting around. This one takes just a little bit. Does everybody have any questions about what's going on so far? Is this all making sense? Even though I'm kind of jumped around a little bit. I'm sorry that I jumped around a little bit, but I thought it would be easier than you sitting here watching every single little step, because the applique is the same. But I wanted to show you that vinyl, because we haven't done one of those for a while. I love the glitter vinyl on this. And the rest of this block is basically just lettering at this point. So the next few steps I've already done, so we'll just walk through them. And I'll tell you what colors I used. But the rest of it is pretty much just, oh, there it goes. It's gotten all the way around. So it's got that kind of like little fuzzy look on the edges. Can you use adhesive stabilizers? Yes, you can, Carol. I find it's a lot more expensive to use the tearaway with the adhesive on it, and I use that, but I don't, for like this kind of thing, it's just, I mean, the little glue stick is so cheap, and it's a lot less than that adhesive stabilizer. So yes, you could if you wanted to, because then it would stick it down, but I found that the glue stick works just fine, and I don't get a lot of puckers. So, okay, so there we got all the way around our little shamrock. And now the next step is 8 in the machine, and I used black, and it says Lucky Us. Okay, and this is just the letters. And then step number 9, I'm going to go down through it. Step number 9 is we have the letters here, and I did that in the oceanic green. It's kind of a teal green right here. And then the last step is step number 10. And that is each other. And I did that in the Kelly green. So it's kind of a lighter green. Okay? So that's why I did the pre-sewing, because I figured that would make that much easier and faster for us to go through. Okay? So there's the block. That is the first block. The Lucky Us, we have each other block. So what do you think? Isn't that cute? That was real. These are really fun to do. I just thought this was such a fun pillow. I don't get tired of these. They're all different, and they're also cute. So, all right. So now let's talk about the other block. The next block is going to be the flying geese block, flying goose block, however you want to say it. Okay. So here's the flying geese right here, and there's 6 of them. Okay, this is going to be done on a different stabilizer though. This I'm going to do with the no-show mesh stabilizer. So I do have no-show mesh in my other 5x7 hoop here. So I'll set this hoop aside. We'll trim these in a minute. So here's my other 5x7 hoop, and I'm going to walk you through what I did here. So I did start this, so you didn't have to sit here and watch me do all these little pieces. So there's actually quite a few pieces. There were 12 of these little white pieces that are going to be the size of the geese, and then these are the actual geese, the colors. Okay, so there's 6 of those. So there was 18 pieces in here. Takes a little while to get it all done. So I wanted to do a little bit of it so you didn't have to sit here and watch all of this. It's very easy though. Once you get it's kind of the same rhythm. So once you get the rhythm down, it's really easy. Okay, so I'm going to switch my design to this one. And I got to go find it on my stick here. Oops, there we go. Oop, I think I got in the wrong folder. There we go. Find PES March, and here is the flying geese. Okay. All right. So, and I gotta look at my book. I ended on step number 19. So it took 19 steps to get from here to halfway done. Okay, but I know it sounds very daunting, but it's much easier than it appears. So the first thing, and you can see that on here, the very first thing that sews out, and I'm just going to put some white thread in my machine, is this little road map. Okay, so it sews out the whole thing. It's like a little road map, so you can kind of see where you're going. Okay, so that's the very first thing it sews out. And this is no-show mesh. I just have one layer of no-show mesh in the machine. Or in the hoop. So I'm going to go ahead and get my white thread. And I just use white thread to piece the whole thing. So I just have white embroidery thread in the needle and white bobbin thread in the bobbin. Okay. Get this in here. Grab the machine. Okay. So I'll kind of walk you through how I started it. The only thing that's different at the very beginning of these, I'm gonna start in the middle of it, but the only thing that's different is the very first piece you put down is just going to be put down right side up. And then after that, all of the pieces, so then the next piece would have been over here and then over here, they're all going to be put right sides together and then flipped over. So it's like flip and fold, except for the very first piece is always right side up. So this one was right side up. Okay. So I'm going to start in the middle to show you how to do this. So the only thing that's going to be different up here is that I am going to put this piece also right sides together because it wasn't the very first piece. So that is the easiest thing. The other thing I would recommend to you is once you learn how this goes and you get the rhythm for it, I actually don't look at the instructions because I find the instructions very complicated. There's a lot of steps and trying to keep track of where I'm at. So I watch the machine, okay? And I like to watch the machine. And then in this one, I had a particular order I wanted to put my fabrics. So I think I've got them in the right order here, yeah. So I've got them laid here in the order I want to put them in, okay? So the next step is going to be one of the goose blocks, okay, one of the colors. And the next one is going to be yellow. So when I started the blue one, I put it right side up. But since I'm in the middle up here, it's going to be right sides together. So I'm just going to put right sides together here and kind of make sure that I can see my little lines over on the side so everything's covered, okay? Now I need to advance my machine. I'm on step number 19 in the machine. So I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to go down to 19, just like I was doing the other. I'm going to just fast forward. So basically into the middle. So you didn't have to watch the entire thing, because if you see me do it 3 times, you'll be good. But I love paper piecing this way. All right, so I'm ready for step number 19, which is going to go across here and sew this. Okay, so here is the right sides are together. Okay, so remember the only thing that would be different down here was I've had it right side up the first time, and after that everything's right sides together. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew out number 19, and we'll bring the goose block up. And it's the same procedure for each one of these blocks. I'm just going to, that was step number 19, we're ready for 20. So in between, we're going to flip the block up, okay? So like this one, I have to flip it up. You want to finger press it and get a nice crisp press on that. Let's see if we can get just a little closer, okay? Like that. The next step is going to be a tack down and a cutting line. So it's going to, we're going to be going back to one of these white pieces, so it's going to go over on this side. Okay, so I'm going to put the foot down and I'm going to sew out the next step, and it's going to go along this right hand side. And they're all the same. So they do the right hand side first. Okay, and it's going to put the line here. That is also a trimming line. So it's a tack down line and a trimming line. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim close to the stitches along that line. Okay, and you'll also notice you'll get a couple little stitches sometimes in the previous block, and I sometimes have to trim through those. Okay, so I trimmed off that line. And then the next step will be one of the white pieces, because this is the sides of the goose. So I have to make sure, these are the ones I always have to make sure I have them right side up. So I'm going to put right sides together, okay, along where that stitching line was, and you can see the stitches. And then I'm going to, whoops, sorry, I made it mad. There we go. Then I'm going to stitch that down. So you tack down and trim, put the fabrics right sides together, tack down and flip. So it does the same procedure over and over, okay? So I'm going to flip this over right side up. I'm going to press it, finger press it, so I have a nice crisp seam. And then the next one is going to be the other side. So we're going to do the other side of this block. So we're going to have our trimming and tack down line together. So we're going to trim along that line. Okay. So now I'm going to trim along this line where this one's sewed. Flip it over here a little bit so you can see it better. So I'm going to trim along here. And again, this one you might have a little stitch in here that they kind of extend the stitches a little longer than they need to. So sometimes you'll have a little stitch you have to clip through. And then I clip through all the way down here. Like that. And if it's not perfect, it's just fine, because you're not going to see it. It's all going to be underneath. Okay? Now this is going to be another side piece, so that is white. Okay, I'm going to center it on the stitching line, and then the next step will be the tack down line again for that side. Okay, so it's going to be the same procedure over and over. Okay, so there's that one. And then we're going to flip this over and press it. And I found that finger pressing, I used to use my little iron, but I found that finger pressing works just as well for me, so I don't have to go grab the iron all the time. Okay? So then we've got both sides on this next goose. Well, now we have to start another goose. So then it's going to go across the top so that we can trim that off so we can put another colored piece on. So is everybody seeing how the pattern goes? Once you get the hang of these, they're pretty easy. Because it's always the same rhythm, okay? But I find that I don't look at the instructions because I just get confused. So I'm going to trim across the top now, because this is where another one of the goose blocks is going to go. So I'm going to put my next one, I think the next one's orange. Okay, so I'm going to put my orange block. Right sides together. Okay, we're going to do the right sides together. And I've got it across, and you can see where the edges of my little road map are right here. Make sure you cover that up. And then we're going to sew that one down. I just love paper piecing, and I once I learned to digitize them and stuff and do them in the hoop, they're so much easier. I never sewed very well with regular traditional paper piecing. This works a lot easier for me. I know the machine's going to sew straight this way. Okay, so we're going to flip this up, give it a finger press, and then of course now the next step is going to be the right hand side. So it's going to do our tack down and trimming line on the right of this goose. Okay, there's that, and then we're going to trim again. So these look really scary when you first see them because there's so many steps. Like this one had 36 steps for this one little block, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know. But if you, like I said, once I get the rhythm of it, I actually don't look at the instructions. It just makes me confused, so I just do what the machine says. Okay, so I got that trimmed. All right, then I'm going to put, this is a side piece, so these are going to be the white. So I'll grab my little white piece over here and put it along the line. And then we're going to stitch that together. Right sides are together. And then we'll flip it over. So we're almost done. Just a few more steps. Okay, flip this one over. Give it a nice finger press, and that's going to do the other side. Okay, so we'll sew the other side, and that'll be our trimming line and our tack down line. Okay, and then we'll trim this one. So once you get the hang of it, it really goes quick. All right, so here we go. We're going to trim this one. I'm going to get this one along here, and this one I've got another little stitch that sometimes there's a stitch that's up that you can't get to from the previous one, so I have to go from this direction, see if I can get it. There we go. There we go. I try to get through those if I can, because sometimes with the white fabric, if there's some orange under there, you'll see it through the white fabric. So I like to try to get those out. And then I'll go down here. Get that one. Try not to cut through your stabilizer if you can. I did cut through my stabilizer once today when I was working on this earlier. Whoops. All right, so now we're ready to put the left piece on, the left white piece on. So here, I kind of got a piece up here that's weird. Get that out of there. There we go. Okay, so we'll get another piece of white. Lay that right sides together. I always have to check to make sure I got it right here. These white on whites are really hard to see. All right, lay that along that line. Now I've kind of got the raw edges like right together. Okay, and then we're going to sew this one down. All right, and we're going to flip this one over, and we got one more goose to do. Okay, we're going to flip this one over, give it a nice finger press, and then it's going to sew across the top again, so that we can do the last colored goose. And that one's going to be the green. Trim first. But you can see sometimes it's better just to, the machine knows what it's doing, and once you get the pattern, it's so easy just to kind of go along and watch the machine, and you don't have to try to figure out where you're on, what step you're on in the instructions. Okay, and then we're going to do the last goose. Is this going to be this green one? So I'll put that one on here. Again, I'm going to make sure it's equal distant over my little road map that's there. What do you do if you cut your stabilizer? Honestly, I just keep going. It's usually okay, Cindy. I've got a little cut in mine, but see, the fabric is actually sewn together, so it's okay. It'll be fine if you cut your stabilizer, but try not to if you can. I did cut through mine earlier today. Okay, so here's our last little goose. We're going to turn it over, give it a finger press, and then we're going to do the right side and trim, and then the left side and trim. Here's the right side. Yeah, so it'll be okay because the fabric is sewn together, so it's fine. The stabilizer is just stabilizing it a little bit, but, you know, so I didn't cut that much through it, so it was all right. All right, so I'm going to trim this up. That side, whoops. Got a little piece that's hanging on over here. All right. There's that one. I'm going to put the number on the sides again, so we're going to put white. Try and get a hold of it. Make sure I got it right side up. Okay, I'm going to put the right sides together. Do this other. This is the last corner then. So do the right side. We're going to stitch that down. This side. And we'll flip it up. Right side up. Okay, whoops. That one. Like that. And then we're going to do the last placement line over here and trimming line and trim the other side. So we're almost there. Okay. Do the trimming over here. Got another little stitch up here, so gotta try to get that. It's hard to trim in the hoop. I like to be able to show you, and sometimes it's hard to trim in the machine here. Okay, so I got another one of those little stitches. You kind of stick the tip of your scissor down in there, and likes to catch in there a little bit. There it comes. Get that green thread out of there, and then I'm going to trim down here too. Get this out of the way so there's not so much bulk. You want to trim away as much as you can so there's not too much bulk, you know. Alright, and then we're going to do the last side. Put the right sides together. Like this. And this is step number 35 of 36 in the machine. And we'll do this one. And then the last step is going to give us our trimming line. So it gives us a line to trim by. Alright, so there's the last seam. I'm going to advance my instruction book here. So this is actually step number 24 in the machine. And step number 25 is the cut line. So I'm going to flip this up. Press it. And then the last thing that sews out is the trim line, or in other words, it just kind of tacks it all down and gives us a line to trim on. So this is number 36 in the machine. I'm just going to drive around the outside edge. And that's what we're going to use for trimming. And you could do this in a different color. I just used the white because I could still see it okay. Alright, and that makes the block. What do you think? Isn't that kind of fun to do? I love doing these. I think we did one of these in September. Wasn't there a piece when it was the, I think it was the leaf, wasn't it? Okay, so now we're ready to take this out of the hoop too. Okay? So, it's coming up and asking me to check my internet connection, so hopefully you're still seeing me okay. I'm sorry, guys. I hope it's fixed this week. Okay, so here's my block. I'm going to take this out of the hoop. And I'm going to take the other one out of the hoop. Oops, second here. There we go. Must have a piece of tape or something on there. There we go. Take this one out of the hoop. And then I'm going to take my first one out of the hoop too. And with this one has the tearaway on it. Remember to leave the tearaway on until we're done trimming, because you want to leave the stabilizer on until we're done trimming, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step over here real quick, and I'm just going to press this flat a little bit. Don't get on your vinyl or anything. I'm just going to press the edges flat so that it isn't so wrinkly. Just a second. Makes it easier to, if it's not so wrinkly. All right. So there is my two finished blocks. So there's that one with the edges trim or edges pressed down, and then here's my goose block. Okay, so the next step is going to be trimming those. So if you give me a second, I'm going to pull my camera over here so you can see the trimming. Got the trimming sitting next to me here. So we'll just bring the camera over. A little closer. Oops. Can't get the... Decided it didn't want to go back on. There we go. Bring this up in a second so you can see. Alright, so we're going to trim. Let's go ahead and trim the little goose block first. Move these for a second. I'm going to use a regular ruler for that. And then I'm going to use my orange pop rulers for the other. So this one was the one that I said that the last line that it did along the outside edge is where we're going to trim it. We're going to trim it right on that, and that's what it says. It says to arrange, let's see, you have to find the little trimming thing. Where do they talk about trimming that one? I think one page back. I think I got too many pages. Yep. So it says, with a rotary cutter and ruler, trim the block exactly on the cut line. So that last little drive around that it did, that's where we're going to trim it. So we'll go ahead and trim that off, and I'm just going to put my ruler right on the top of the stitching. And I've got my Martelli mat. It's a lot easier if you have a rotating mat when you're doing these kind of things. So do that side and do all four sides. And then all of a sudden it just looks just right. It's amazing when you trim these how different they look. With all those little edges on the edge there. Okay. So I'm putting that right on the stitch line that's stitched out, the last one. And just right along there and right along here. So then we're all done with that. So all of a sudden it just looks like that little goose block. Isn't that cool? So there's that one. All trimmed, ready to go on. Okay? So let's do the one with the orange pop rulers. Now this one says to visually center it in the 6.5 by 8.5 inch. So that's this medium-sized one. Okay, so that's the medium-sized one here. So I'm going to lay this up here on my rotating mat. Let me push my tablet back just a little bit. And then we're going to visually center it with that. Now there is some lines on here that help quite a bit to visually center, because there's like 1/4 inch marks all the way along the edges. So sometimes I use those to help me see that I have it fairly centered. Now I am a little bit this way, so I need to go up a little bit so that it looks more centered. Even though I thought I was centered, but I was a little off evidently. So that looks much better. And then looks about even then. Okay, and then what I like to do, once I get it where I want it, I like to take the bigger ruler, the one that fits in around it. That's why they call them orange pop rulers, because then you got a little more to hang on to. So I've got the bigger one that goes around there, and that looks pretty good. I think that's pretty close. And then I'm going to cut on the inside of the ruler. I'm going to get this book out of the way for a second. Now I'm left-handed, so I have my rotary cutter in my left hand. I'm going to start on the right, on this side. and lay my blade inside there, pull back, and push forward. And then I'm going to rotate the mat. This Martelli mat is like my favorite thing. And I'm doing this kind of stuff. And it rolls really well because it's got like a Lazy Susan on it. I've had several other rotating mats in my life, but this one is so much better. Okay? And I'm going to do the same thing on the last side. Now this one had a couple of extra cuts on it, because this one's a little different size. It has to be a little different size. So that wasn't the end of the cutting. It says remove the embroidery from the orange pop ruler, and then it says trim an additional 1/4 inch from each side of the block. This is trimmed then to 6 by 8. Okay, so we do have to do an extra trim. So what I like to do when I do this is trim. I like to trim the top and the bottom, and then the two sides, so I don't forget which I have done. So I'm going to do 1/4 inch on each side. So we'll start with the bottom here. And put my 1/4 inch mark on the bottom. Trim off that 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to do the top, so I don't forget what I'm doing. So we'll do the top, then we'll do the sides. So here's the 1/4 inch mark. Okay, then we'll do the sides. So it's going to end up 6 by 8. Okay, there's that. And then do the other side. Like that. Okay. So now we'll measure it, make sure we did okay. I think we did okay. So, whoops, where's the one? Can't find the one. There we go. So it should be 8 inches long. Awesome. And should be 6 inches wide. Looks like we did okay. So here's that block. Now, after I trimmed it, I left the stabilizer on. So now I'm going to remove that tearaway stabilizer. The cutaway, of course, will stay in on the back of this one because it's soft and it's also sewn into it. Okay. But this one I am going to tear off this tearaway. What I found is that if I leave cutaway stabilizer on these larger blocks, when I go to put the pillow form in, it seems like it wrinkles or something. It makes kind of a funny little wrinkly thing on the pillow. So I don't like to use cutaway on these. I like to use tearaway. I'm just going to pull off as much as I can. It doesn't have to be all of it. You know, get as much off of it as you can. So I'm just going to kind of pull as much off here. There we go. It's pretty good. Move this over here out of the way. All right. Then it goes in, when you go to put it in the pillow, it just has it's a little more supple, so it isn't so stiff. Okay. So there's our little block. Ready to be sewn together. All right. So that's the next section is going to be some sewing. We're going to do a little sewing. I'm not going to sew the whole thing, but I thought I'd get it started for you. And then I'll refer you to the finishing. I'm going to move the camera back over. I'll refer you to the finishing on a couple of the other videos mostly for the binding. Okay. So if I move over here, again, second, got to get my foot controller, and I'm going to switch my machine over to sew. Give me a second here. I dropped my foot controller cord on the floor. I always have it wrapped around the camera mount because then I can find it when I need it. You do want to unplug just so you know, you want to unplug your foot controllers when you're embroidering. Don't leave them plugged in while you're embroidering because sometimes it causes an issue. So with the jacks. So make sure you're unplugged from the foot controllers unplugged when you're embroidering. Okay, so the next step is going to be sewing. That's down here where it says sewing instructions. We're going to sew the blocks together first. Going to do a 1/4 inch seam, and you know what? I think I need some white thread for that. I don't want to use dark thread for that. A second. I'm going to get some Pima cotton thread out here. Put that in the machine. Going to sew it together with white. And I think I actually put my binding on with monofilament because it was kind of an odd color of green and I didn't have one that matched very well. Put this in the bobbin as well. So this is my white Pima cotton here, and then I'm just going to change my foot real quick. I switch my machine back and forth so often I don't even think anything of it. So put my J foot on. Take this one off. Alright. I'm going to tell my machine to go back to sewing. And I'm going to go to the Q tab, which is where the quilting stitches are. And I'm going to use Q02 because I want a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Shut this drawer here. And I'll put my foot on. Alright, all ready for sewing. Okay, oops, get my screwdriver out of the way. And so I've got my stabilizer off my main big block here, and I'm going to put my little Flying Geese block on the left side of it. And we're just, I think I might put a couple pins in here, and we're going to stitch this on. Get this, and you know, I probably should turn my iron on. Forgot to turn my iron on over there, so got my little iron, I can use that. Right. Put my ironing mat back over here so I can use it. So I got those pinned on, ready to go. Grab my ironing mat. Okay. We're going to do a 1/4 inch seam. And sew these two together to make the whole top. So I got my machine set up to Q02, which is the 1/4 inch seam, or the piecing stitch. Okay. I'm going to tie a knot, and then we're going to zip up this side here. Get this one out. Alright. Whoops. Kind of missed. So let's back up a couple stitches. Oh, come on. Go backwards. Not forwards, backwards. There we go. Alright. I meant to hit the tie in place button, but it didn't quite make it. Alright, so here is our Flying Geese. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually press the seam open. I'm going to go rogue and press the seam open. When they're kind of bulky like this, I like to press the seams open because they seem like they don't make such a bulky spot. So we'll just press that open. Careful of your glitter vinyl. Okay. I'm going to press a little bit from the top too. There. Okay. So there's our top. It's all done. Okay. Then the next step would be to hem your back pieces. Okay, so we've done this several times, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through this. And we're gonna hem these on the long ends, okay, or actually on the one of the short ends. Okay, so this is the 9" by 6, 9.5 by 6, and this is 3.5 by 6. So with the 6" ends. So I've got it hemmed. I already did that. Okay, on each one. Okay. Then we're going to overlap these. Now I like the big end to be on the outside. But these, since we're going to put binding on it, are going to be with the wrong sides together. Okay, so we're going to put these, we're going to turn this so that the wrong side's showing. And I want the big piece to be on the outside because it's easier to get it into the pillow that way. All right, so I'm going to put these on like this and overlap it so that the big piece is on the outside, so we don't have to turn them right side out. It's going to be wrong sides together. And then I'm going to pin these on so the raw edges are together. Okay, so I'm going to pin these on like this. Get some pins here. I'm doing all my raw edges. I'm pinning my corners. Oops, stuck in here. Got a little bit off on that one. Okay. And then where those little overlaps are, I like to make sure I put a pin in the overlap because I like to know exactly where that is so that I know I got them both caught. Okay, so we're going to put a pin there and a pin here. All right, and I like the big piece on the outside, so it's easier to get the pillow in there. Okay. Not quite pulled down yet. There we go. Get them all even. I'm surprising myself. I actually got fairly even on my, looks like I did a good job of cutting my backs out. They fit really well. Okay. Just pin there. And then the next step is going to be, we're gonna sew all the way around, because remember, there's binding on this one. And that step is going to be on the next page, which is step number 6 on the top of page 17. And the difference that I do is I stitch at 1/8 of an inch. Instead, it says 1/4, but if you do 1/4, your binding thread may show, it may show the top stitch thread may show over the binding, okay? So I am going to turn this actually right side up so I can see where I'm at. I'm going to put my needle, move it to the center needle position, which is Q01. And I'm going to just top stitch this at about 1/8 of an inch. I've got my foot on my little, there's 2 marks in this foot. This is the J foot, one in the center and one just slightly to the right. And I'm going to run the fabric right along that right hand notch. And that's about 1/8 of an inch. Instead of 1/4, because that way I know when I go to put my binding on with a 1/4 inch seam, I'm not going to see this, because I don't want to see this one. Okay, this is just holding everything together, so when I go to do my binding, I don't have to worry about things scooting around on me. Okay, so this is about 1/8 of an inch. Get my pin out of there. Like I need to trim my backing just a hair. I don't normally get my backing too even, so, you know. Alright. Just about around. Go down to the end here. I'll trim my backing just a little bit. Again, the 1/8 of an inch works better for me because then I know I'm not going to see this in my binding seam. Almost all the way around. I think I got just a little space here to do, about up to here. Alright, I'll just tie that off. Okay, tie that off. And then the last step will be the binding. Now there's 2 ways to do your binding, depending on how you like to do binding. I prefer to put it on with the sewing machine and sew it down with the sewing machine. So I'm going to put my binding, and I'll do this after class, but we'll get you started. And I have done a couple of big binding videos that were quite detailed. The January pillow, I did the binding quite detailed in that. And I also did the binding quite detailed in the September rectangle pillow. And I really went through it very detailed, okay? So I'm going to put my binding on the back of the little pillow and flip it to the front to stitch it down. Now, if you're gonna hand stitch it yourself, you want to put it on the front of the pillow, turn it to the back, and then hand stitch it down on the back. So whichever works the best for you. Like I said, I prefer to put it on with the machine, so I'm going to be putting mine on the back. Okay. And in the instructions, it talks about, and these are 2 1/4 inch binding. And it talks about putting it on the front and flipping it to the back and hand stitching it down. So if you want to do it the way I do it, go ahead and watch one of those, either the September Bench Buddy pillow, the rectangle one, because I did a real detailed binding on that one, and or the January one. I did pretty much pretty detailed on that one as well. Then you can, if you can't remember how to do the binding. And so that's something that I'm going to do after class, is finish up my binding. So it won't take me too much longer to do that. But here's my binding. It's kind of the green with the little swirls on it. And then I'll probably sew it down. I'll probably sew it on with the white. It doesn't really matter. I might do green. But then I'm going to do monofilament, I think, to do the zigzagging, because I zigzag around the outside edge and then you really can't see it. You want it to be pretty matchy, or monofilament works quite well. Okay? All right, so there's our little pillow. Isn't it cute? I'm going to get the binding put on. I'll put a picture up later. But this is what it looks like when you're all done. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? He's gone. Oh, here he is. I lost the pillow. It's up here. There we go. So this was done on the back, so I put the binding on the back, flipped it over to the front, and used my little tiny zigzag. You can kind of see the indentation, but I did this in monofilament. Okay, because I do so many of these, it's faster to do with the sewing machine. All right, so that is that little pillow. Isn't it cute? I just thought this was adorable. And then the one for next week, let me show you that one. The one for next week is going to be different. It's going to be a flange. So this isn't, we've done one flange one, and I think it was October we did a flange one. This one's a little different though. This one has a pieced flange. So you have to piece this and then put the flanges on. Isn't that darling? And this is called Spring is in the Air, and it's got the little shamrocks at the bottom and then a kite. But I love the little flange along the outside edge. Okay, so this is the one for next week. We'll do this one next week. And I'll do a little pre-sewing on this too, so that I can show you how to do the flange. Mostly putting it together next week, because a lot of this is pretty much applique. And then I'll do some of the pre-sewing, so we won't have to do so I can make sure you can see the flange done. So, okay? All right. So this next week will be this one. I'm going to finish up Lucky Us. So I'll take a picture of it when I get it all done. Finish up the binding tonight. And then the following week, we're going to make origami bags. So we're going to do a little sewing. So here's a little origami bag. This one has pink polka dots inside. Okay, so this is going to be the class for not next week, but the week after. Okay, and then we'll do software again at the end of February. Okay, so if you have any questions, please message me through Facebook. I'll put this up so I can say goodbye to you. I think we got everything. Hopefully the internet was not too bad. I do apologize. Hopefully next week it'll be much better. And then we will do our second pillow for March, and then in April we're going to in March we're going to do the April pillows. Okay, so I haven't done those yet, but we get to do that cute little bunny pillow. And in April we're actually going to do another Easter pillow. That's my pillow. So we're going to do some extra pillows. So, all right. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I will be seeing you soon. And next week we'll hopefully have better internet. So thanks everybody. Good night.